27%. Any guesses what that number means? Is it the number of people in the US that listen to podcasts? Actually, that number is 24%. Well, in 2017, that number has increased exponentially up to 64% in March of 2023. Podcasting continues to be on the rise. It is the place to be. Only 27% of podcasts are hosted by women. Only 27%. Are you as shocked as I was? Just think of all the voices we are missing. Is your voice one of those? Is there a topic you keep thinking about? A message you know needs to be shared? Guests you know you want to interview? Or maybe you're an entrepreneur and you know that you want to help others get to know you better and know what you do. Podcasting is the way to do it. This is why I founded Authentic Connections Network. A podcast network that is so much more than you'd imagine. We take the tech and stress out of podcasting. We give you the power of a network, the power of community, of education around podcasting, of coaching, individualized supports, and all the other incredible women breaking through and changing the landscape of podcasting. Isn't it time you realize your dream? We believe strongly in our creators. We believe in Ella Shawn and in Black Writers Therapy. There are conversations that need to happen, stories that need to be told. Authentic Connection Network is the place for them. Follow us on Instagram at 37by27. Comment the word amplify on any of our posts or DM it if that feels better to you. I want to learn more about you and your goals and how maybe you could be part of Authentic Connections.
Welcome to Black Writer Therapy, a podcast where Black women writers are invited to sit on the proverbial couch, have a cup of tea, and share the stories behind the stories, and what it really takes to write books about Black women in an industry that still prefers white as the default. I'm your host, published author and unlicensed therapist, Ella Shawn. Black Writer Therapy is now in session.
Dionne Ford is a National Endowment for the Arts Creative Writing Fellow and the co-editor of the anthology Slavery's Descendants. Her work has appeared in the New York Times, Lit Hub, New Jersey Monthly Magazine, Rumpus, and Ebony, and won awards from the National Association of Black Journalists and the Newswomen's Club of New York. She lives in New Jersey with her family, and her memoir, Go Back and Get It, is her first book.
Hi, welcome to Miss Dionne Ford. This is your session of Black Writer Therapy. Thank you so much for agreeing to sit on my proverbial couch and discuss your debut memoir, Go Back and Get It.
Thank you so much for asking me. I'm so excited.
Wow. Well, this is a first for my podcast. I have only had fiction writers. So you are the first nonfiction memoirist that has been on the couch. So yay! And thank you. I mean, really, you had me doing homework, right? Like I write fiction. So reading fiction and getting ready for a show is like, this isn't really work. This is just a hobby, But it's like when I dove into your memoir, I was just like, wait a minute, girl, we're gonna have to pull out the letters behind your name and actually use them. This woman has you working. What's happening here? So, I mean, thank you. All the great gems and pearls of wisdoms. I can't wait to get into the conversation with you. But before I do that, I have to ask you the question that I ask every guest. And I don't think that it's asked enough. So, how are you healing today, Dionne?
Oh, wow. What a great question. You know how I am healing today is being accepting of my or at least trying to be more accepting of my 54-year-old body. I think as a woman, I've spent a lot of time worrying about how I look to the world and judging myself on that. And now at 53, mother of two children that, came from my body, I really I'm having to look at myself a little bit differently. And also be more accepting of what my body can do physically.
Right.
I love to dance, and I have felt really challenged around how to do that lately. And last night I took an African dance class at a school in my town that my kids have taken dance classes at. I've taken dance class at. I was so worried that I wasn't going to be able to keep up and all that. And you know what? I went and I just had so much fun. It's the best I've felt in my body in a really long time.
Wow.
So I think that's how I'm healing today, is bringing my full self to that African dance class and letting myself do my thing.
Absolutely love that. And as women, we are always thinking about ourselves, not in terms of how we see us, but we are always thinking in terms of everyone else. It's kind of kismet that you would say how we don't give ourselves permission to see all the beauty, all the grace, all the magnificent aspects that we have because we're so busy trying to make sure that X, Y, and Z, what they're seeing is what they need and want to see. So we project that.
Absolutely.
And so reclaiming our space, our bodies through dance, through meditation, through writing, through rituals, through whatever is such an important part of our healing journey. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, it was divine. I got so much out of it. I was nourished in more ways than just physically. It was really a good treat for me.
So I did the whole shaving of my head and I felt myself releasing a lot of stress and angst from the traveling and bringing my kid home and all the things. And it just felt so good to just take time, get all of the hair off and wash it and oil it. And I was just like, as I flushed my hair down the toilet because, I'm Southern and we cannot have hair floating around in the world, I can't do that. And it was just such a release. So yes, we heal in very different and wonderful ways. And all things can be healing if we do so with intention.
I agree.
Okay, so that moves us really beautifully into the first segment of our show, which is called intentional writing. But before we get there, and I'm gonna have my mental health consultant, Lisa Williamson Rosenberg, pop in again, probably more for me than for the listeners, because your memoir is just that available. I don't know if that's the right word, but it feels right. Like it's that available for readers to fall into. So I want to have her come on. Like, I'm going to try not to fangirl, but Dionne, like when I do, just leave me. Just let me have my moments, okay? And I hate when it happens too, because it's so embarrassing for me. You did such amazing work on this book. So I have like one more question. You're a journalist, yes?
That's my training, yes.
Okay. So was it difficult going from journalistic style writing to creative nonfiction, or have you always done like creative nonfiction in your journalism world?
That's actually a very good question. So I think, I've always been writing since I was a little girl, and I always wrote creatively. Like I always wanted to write. I would write radio shows with my friend. Like we would come up with crime shows and tape ourselves. And So I've always loved to tell stories. But as a journalist, I was trained to keep myself out of the story.
Mm-hmm.
So in approaching this, I did have to really consider how I would thread my story with the research that I was finding, and
Mm-hmm.
how I executed my great great grandmother and my great grandmother's stories.
Mm-hmm.
So it did take some reconsidering how to do that, because yeah, as a journalist, I was not really comfortable with inserting myself in the story. But I have to say that I am appreciating, as we continue to evolve, in the profession, other journalists having more permission to
Mm-hmm.
insert themselves when it's appropriate. So I drew from that too, noticing that kind of shift in reportage, and kind of giving myself permission in that way, you know.
I'm so glad you did. It was such an amazing read. The way, like I said, I'm a fiction writer and I absolutely adore fiction, but I also love creative nonfiction. And so reading your memoir read like a novel. It was strange to
Huge
know
compliment.
that it was it was not a novel. And yet I don't know if it was because like your chapters had titles or I don't know what, but it read like a novel, and it could very well have been the insertion of you that ran through the research that tied all of it together to make it feel like one cohesive experience. Does that make sense? Or am I?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I mean, I'm over here like giddy with excitement because, I feel like that's like the highest praise, to have, a memoir read like a novel. At least for me, I certainly wanted to try and write something that did have that sense of plotting and what's going to happen
Mhm.
next, and, that kind of sense of urgency too.
Yes.
So I really, really appreciate that. And, of course, like any memoir is just a slice of a person's
Hmm.
story, and even only one portion of their self, So
Right,
I kind of
right.
had to offer up some whatever version, that we were going to follow. And I really appreciate hearing that it, was evocative, and did have that sense. So yeah, that's high praise. Thank you.
Well, look at me giving high praise where it's due because it was really just a beautiful experience for me as a reader. And even though memoirs cover just only like you said, just a slice of a person's life or self that they are giving to the world, because of all of the historical content and the backstory of your family, I feel like I know all of you. And I'm like, was that intentional? Did you know that it would read in a way that doing it, I guess, providing all of the information and and the research on your family would also read into who you are as a woman right now?
Wow. I guess I looked at it. No, I didn't really think about the family so much revealing stuff about me to the reader, as much as I did want to delve into that to reveal something about me to myself, to
Mm,
understand myself. So I guess I really wasn't thinking about the effect that that would have on the reader. So that's actually a bonus too, because it certainly had that effect on me, that by,
mhm.
really digging into who they had been, how they lived, did give me a broader sense of myself,
Yeah,
which I really appreciate. So yeah,
yeah.
now it seems kind of obvious that that would be the case. But I was only really focusing on how it would help me, generally. So I'm glad that it
Wow.
had that effect on you.
And that's when you know that what you're doing is intentional writing. Haha, you see how I'm segueing here?
Pretty
So I learned about 3 years ago that the word intention has a medical definition as well. And it is the process or the healing process of a wound. And I had no idea that it meant that. And I decided, okay, well, the word intention or any aspect of the word is only ever going to mean for me the healing process of a wound because we are all here on a healing journey. No one is not healing, whether or not they acknowledge it is a moot point. We are all healing. And so I decided I wanted to definitely have a segment on my show that highlighted not only how writing is a cathartic process for the writer, but it becomes a conduit of healing for the reader.
Mm.
And so, because your debut memoir is Go Back and Get It. By the way, great title. Great title. Sankofa means to go back and get it, or it is not wrong to go back for that which you have forgotten. I love the word Sankofa.
Me too.
I love that you gave it to us in a way that was kind of like, girl, go back and get it. That's how I read your title, girl, go back and get it because it's yours to get. And then getting into the book and going back to get it. You went back and got a lot. Tell me, please, how was that process of researching, looking for your enslaved people? You kept saying that when you go seeking your enslaved people, you need to be prepared to learn a lot about their enslavers.
Yeah.
How is that?
Yeah. I mean, ultimately extremely satisfying. I'm
Mm-hmm.
so thrilled that I kind of put meat on the bones, I guess, as it were, of my grandmothers,
Mm-hmm.
who've been
Mm-hmm.
enslaved, and that I know things about them, that I've, read words that my great grandmother Josephine wrote, that I got to know that her mother was seeking to find her family. All that
Mm-hmm.
was just so gratifying and fulfilling. It was also painful
Mm-hmm.
to have to sift through their enslavers, also my family, in order to find those things.
Yeah.
It was difficult, but also parallel to my own experience
Mm-hmm.
of, being a survivor of sexual assault by a member of my family. So ultimately, I guess then that there's like another circle of that. It even gave me more support, more of a sense of the deep resources that my great great grandmother must have had to
Mm.
have lived for so long, to have continued to seek her family that she'd been separated from, and to find ways to, provide home for her children,
Yeah. Yeah.
whether that was through like just a spiritual life, which she seemed to have a very rich and deep and committed one that she
Mm-hmm.
passed on to her daughter, at least, probably other members of her family as well, but also through property.
Right.
So yes, so much bittersweet, but mostly sweet because I got to learn about her and about them. So yeah, the process was quite quite a roller coaster of emotions that I'm
Yeah.
so grateful and feel privileged to have been on. Yeah.
That's par for course when we're doing, the work of excavating ourselves from what we have been told we are to really figuring out what and who we are and going back to get it from an ancestral perspective. You said this book was healing for you because you were able to recover stories of women in your family who were enslaved, as well as let go of your shame of being molested as a child. And you did an amazing job of dropping and weaving that hurt, that trauma throughout the entire text of the memoir. It felt like a parallel to not having control enough of one's own body to be able to keep it where you want it, to keep it doing what you want it to do. And so, was that an actual, like, is that where the parallels came in when you were reading through your ancestral grandmother's plural possessive, their story?
I mean,
Mm.
she had 6 children with the man who enslaved her. And, some of those children were during slavery, some of them were after. So, absolutely, she was not in control of her decisions. So, it was from that actual
Mm-hmm.
reality, that enslaved women were raped.
Yes.
And she was. And that's history I can see when I look in my father's skin, which is so fair. So I think I was really thinking about that, especially because then there were children that she had with the same enslaver after slavery ended.
Right.
And so I felt that it spoke to the particularness of family sexual assault, where for me, I have fond feelings on the one hand and memories of my abuser before the
Mm-hmm.
abuse, and of course, these other feelings that I can't reconcile
Right.
with those. And so it just made me think that when you are in such close circumstances with people who abuse you, but also might do something positive for you, how complex, it is to sift through all this reality.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I was thinking about the parallels.
Okay. That This is the best time to bring Lisa in because she's here and she's ready. And we're hitting into some territory. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring in my mental health consultant because as my intro says, I am the host and unlicensed therapist here. And Lisa Williamson Rosenberg is a licensed psychotherapist who specializes in trauma and healing in that area. So I'm going to go ahead and invite Lisa in for a bit, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's great.
Hi,
Hi,
Lisa. How are
Dawn. How are
you?
you? Hi, Ella. How is
Hi.
it going?
It's
Good.
going really well. Thank you
So,
so much for agreeing to
oh,
be with us. We've been kind of chatting a little bit, and we've just gotten
okay.
into the meat and potatoes of the memoir, talking about we're at the
Part?
17th of writing. And so we're talking about how the sexual violence that was perpetrated against Tempe, how that paralleled with the sexual violence that Dionne survived. And I thought, well,
Mhm,
maybe now is the right time to bring in
mhm,
Lisa. And so you have obviously read the book. You were saying how you had these feelings of prior to the abuse for the abuser, and then the feelings after, and it's difficult to reconcile. And then of course thinking of Tempe.
mhm.
and how she had these children. And I love that you say for, by, or with, because it's not clear the enslaver while she was enslaved, but also she went on to have children for, by, or with him afterwards. And that, so how does one like reconcile that? And I have this little part from your book, but my danger, my betrayer was in my family. Then there is the ultimate betrayal of ourselves and our own body. How do you reconcile when it's family that's causing the hurt, the trauma?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've only, I only know how I've done it for myself, which has been different things at different times in my life. There was a certain time in my life where I could have absolutely no contact with my abuser, which meant that I sometimes didn't have contact the way I would like to with other people in my family.
Mm-hmm.
Then there were times when I could have more casual contact, that it didn't feel, that it was neither here nor there for me. I've gone back and forth, and I have so many people in my life who have experienced the same thing. Some who cut off all ties, who have some variation like me back and forth. Others who have very close connection. Those people, the people that I'm thinking of who continue to have closer connection, had help from their families earlier on to address what happened. And I'm thinking of one person whose abuser also then went on to try and continues to try to make some kind of, restitution to this person through financial support with therapy, etc. So there was a real acknowledgement by the entire family of what had happened, and a real good faith effort by the abuser to right, this. So that makes sense to me, but it's just so different for everybody. And so I, at this point in my life, just give myself grace to like be where I'm at that moment,
Yeah.
So
Lisa, chime in, please.
First of all, Dionne, I respect so much that you said, I try to give myself grace, because especially in this day and age of social media, when people are telling their stories, it comes with so much judgment. Did she forgive him, or did she not forgive him? Or how did, everybody sort of has an opinion on, girl, you better tell, and there is no right. The number one thing is to have a sense of your own value. And sometimes that comes from your family. And the hardest part is when the victim is meant to keep her mouth shut and not upset other family members. Because I've also seen that, the abuser is seated beside her at the Thanksgiving table. And if the victim says, I think I'm not going to come to that event, everyone says you're ruining it for other people. And also, like, there are moments where the pain is going to be at the forefront, and there are moments where the pain is going to be way in the back of your mind. And there are also times where the pain is pushed it there. You write in your book, you write about AA, you write about addiction. And I think for so many women who have struggled and who have been sexually molested, there are tools that may not be adaptive. Alcohol, food, drugs that people reach for to numb the pain when it's when people have said stop upsetting other people. Okay, well then I will address it in this other way that hurts me, as opposed to having a voice. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I admire kind of all the different steps you've taken. I mean, Dionne, you've seen clergy, you've talked to therapists, you've been to 12-step programs, and you've taken on this unbelievable journey that I think helps heal not just you and your pain, but also so many of us, to go back and look at what is this sexual abuse that's one of the pillars of our country's success. And maybe it was a survival thing that forced you back in time. But I think so many of us can benefit.
No, and I do appreciate the vulnerability. I think most people associate being vulnerable with being weak, and I've always thought it's the most courageous act any person can engage in, is allowing themselves to be vulnerable and to become intimately connected to self. Intimacy into me, I see, and that is the connection that allows us to become vulnerable and courageously so. And you do that in so many ways. You say the men in my family had gone off to war, but I was the one diagnosed with PTSD. And you talk about PTSD and what works or what worked for you earlier with therapeutic measures. You talked about the EMDR was so effective and so helpful. And I love how you talk about it. So could you expound a little bit more on that process for you? And then Lisa, if you could tell us why it works that way.
I'm an EMDR practitioner too. So yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah.
That's something I also do.
Why,
yeah.
And she'll tell us how.
Yeah.
So I sought out EMDR after I'd already been in talk therapy for many years. I started talk therapy when I was about 19 or 20. So, I had 2 kids and I'd been doing therapy for over a decade at that point. But my therapist, who was not working with me at the time because I'd moved out of New York City into New Jersey, and I actually didn't have a therapist at the time, but I called her, kind of in crisis, and told her what was going on. And she told me that it sounded like it was a dissociative episode, and that she had heard of EMDR. She wasn't licensed in it herself, but that she was hearing, good things about it. It was kind of new at that point. This must have been like 2003, 2004.
Okay.
So probably wasn't more than a decade or so old at that point.
It was like 1987-ish, 1986. Francine Shapiro came up with it. Right.
So I guess it's okay to call it kind of new, right?
It was new. No. It was definitely kind of, it was like, what is that weird thing? Is it hypnosis? Is it what? Yeah.
So she told me about it, that she knew about it, but that she wasn't, able to do it, but, that I might want to seek out someone. I was able to find somebody in my town. Lisa will tell you our town.
We've got like so many therapists and authors.
So many
therapists, authors, journalists. Yeah.
So I did find somebody, and I really only saw her a few times, but the process was so effective.
In a world where shadows dance and secrets lurk, comes an unforgettable saga of broken souls, written by Ella Shine. Get ready to embark on a gripping journey through time, a dark Southern coming-of-age saga that spans over 30 years. Nothing is as it seems. With every turn of the page, secrets unravel, revealing a web of intrigue that will leave you breathless. Breaking is the easy part. Having the courage to look into the mirror of your souls, allowing yourself to be consecrated, to rise harmoniously in alignment with self and the universe, that's the hard part. Join John and Vivian on this unforgettable journey where shattered souls rise, courage is tested, and destinies are forged. The Broken Souls series by Ella Shawn, a gripping 4-book masterpiece that will keep you captivated till the very end. Don't miss your chance to experience this compelling tale of love, loss, and redemption. Purchase your copy now and be prepared to have your soul shattered. Because sometimes the darkest paths lead to the brightest light.
Well, I guess what I'm going to share is actually like after the book. I hope this encompasses yielding. I'm not sure. So one of the things I have experienced in my life is like sometimes a difficulty in hearing good things and praise.
Yes.
Like it, but it's can be uncomfortable. And one of the things that has been really remarkable and a surprise to me is to receive people's reflections on my book and how it has affected them. Sometimes people email me. Sometimes people I know who I didn't know. I learn a little bit more about their story. And I don't know why this came to me with yielding, but there has been something about receiving other people's reflections that has been remarkably moving and not something that I was expecting. And I am yielding to this gift and not pushing it back. Does that make sense?
I love that. I absolutely love moving to the gift of acceptance, of praise, of receptivity.
I guess so, of other people's experience. That's the other thing, is that like once, there's the writing a book and then there's publishing a book. And once a book or any real creation, frankly, is outside of you and in a public sphere, it's no longer really yours, and people will have their own experience with that. And so I guess when I'm saying this, that this is an extension of that, yielding to the, that this is now not mine entirely, and people have their own experiences with it. And I want to accept that, especially when someone is gracious enough to share their experience.
Right.
As a healing. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Okay.
Oh, hashtag writer's life, writing while black.
Bookish. Yes.
Bookish.
Yes. Hashtag all of it. You have been great.
Thank you.
Great. You've been smiling this whole time, talking through some extremely difficult things. And I thoroughly enjoyed all of it, honestly. And now you make me want to go find a dance class, because I love to dance too.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
It's medicine.
I think it is. We have come to the end of your session here at Black Writer Therapy. And I would not be a great unlicensed therapist if I did not give you homework.
Oh, okay. Yes. So let's see. Okay. Well, I'm thinking of somebody whose book is not actually out, but it will be out really, really soon. So can I do that? Am I allowed
Yeah,
to do that? Okay. Her name is Kim Coleman Foote. And she also is a memoirist. I don't know if that's okay.
oh,
And
that's fine.
she
You
has a
said
book
Kim
coming-
Coleman,
Kim Coleman Foote.
Foote?
Foote.
Okay.
Mhm. And she has a book coming out called Coleman Hill.
Coleman Hill.
hmm Coleman Hill.
Okay. Okay, Miss Kim Coleman Foote with an E. Your writer friend, Miss Dionne Ford, has said you'd be great for my couch. So expect to hear from the Black Writer Therapy podcast team with an invitation to book your session. Thank you so much. Can you tell the people how they can connect with you, where they can buy your book,
Sure.
anything that's going on with you, what's next for you, Miss Ford?
Absolutely. So I try to keep my events up to date on my website at dionford.com, which also has a way to connect with me if you like. You can buy my book anywhere books are sold, whether that's your local indie bookstore or Barnes & Noble or Amazon.com. And in June, I'm going to Oakland to speak at Coming to the Table, or an organization that brings together descendants of enslaved people and descendants to speak at their national gathering. That's in the middle of the month. And then I come back here to my stomping grounds to speak at the Juneteenth celebrations here in my town, Montclair, as well as my hometown in Morristown, New Jersey. So yeah, I'll be around.
Very good. Congratulations on your success. Congratulations on everything that is yet to come your way. I am so looking forward to anything else that you will put out there for us to read. If I may ask, could I possibly call on you to be a member of a group therapy session that I will put together at some point in time with other Black women writers, and we can sit around and just talk and hang out?
Sure, that
whenever.
Yeah,
very good. And we're going to go ahead and sign off. I can let you get back to your day. Thanks for taking time out to speak with me.
This was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Dionne.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me for this session of Black Writer Therapy. Be sure to follow and leave a review wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And keep the conversations going on Instagram using our hashtag Black Writer Therapy. I'm your host and unlicensed therapist, Ella Shawn, reminding you to be kindest to yourself first, always and in all ways. See you guys next week. Bye.